Excellencies, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon and welcome to our thematic session here at the auditorium of the Bali International Convention Center. This is the future of work, catalyzing just transition towards green jobs in developing and least developed countries. So ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Om Swastiastu. Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. Good afternoon and welcome back once again to all of you. As we are already gathered here, today is a special day because on the 3rd of September 2024, actually the Balinese celebrated as Dark Moon, or also known as the New Moon Cycle. And we have a special ceremony because today is a special day to purify the inner self and also eliminating all impurities within a person. So the person itself will be ready to face the future. This is also in line with our theme now for the thematic discussion. So once again, please welcome. This is our next session, the future of work, catalyzing just transition towards green jobs in developing and least developed countries. So ladies and gentlemen, in this occasion, we are honored to have our keynote speaker that already joining us today. So now without further ado, let us just hear directly the keynote speech from His Excellency Bapak Sandiaga Salahuddin Uno, the Minister of Tourism and Creative Economy of the Republic of Indonesia. Please.
Thank you, Mbak Dian. Hello everybody, semangat? Masih semangat? It's towards the end of the conference and people are getting tired and you should be spending outdoor actually. It's a beautiful day. I was looking at the Nusa Dua beach, it's beautiful. So I'll keep my presentations very short. Welcome. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera bagi kita semua. Shalom, Om Swastiastu. Namo Buddhaya, Salam Kebajikan. Rahayu for Indonesia Maju. Welcome to the high-level forum on multi-stakeholder partnership. And the theme that I'm trying to talk about in relations to green job is sustainable tourism, which link directly to job creations. And this is very key in terms of building a very stronger coalitions, because from the data that we gathered within the tourism and creative economy, that these two sectors with around 30 subsectors, have been able to contribute 6 times more jobs for every dollar investments. So I also look forward for the interventions later on from Ibu Poppy, His Excellency Dennis Chaibi, and Ibu Indira, also from Pertamina, Pak Edwin from Singapore, and also long friend from ILO, Pak Peter van Rooij. Tourism is really, when you're in Bali in particular, a key driver for development and job creations. Across the country, 25 million Indonesians rely and have their livelihood depend on tourism. It fuels the economic growth, reduces poverty, and preserves at the same time cultural heritage, not just in Bali but globally. Over 54% of tourism workers are women, and this is highlighting the role of inclusive employment. Tourism leverage cultural and natural assets, but not just nature, culture, but also adventure, driving development, revenue, job creations, especially in developing countries. We've been able to identify a lot of key sectors in the green jobs area. For instance, Pak Peter flew from Geneva to Bali. According to the Ministry of Tourism and Creative Economy carbon calculator, you will have to plant close to 78 mangrove trees, and you will have the options of planting yourself in the area not too far from here in Benoa, or as our partners like Jejak Inn or Y Step to do it for you for a fraction of the cost. So this is the jobs that suddenly become available. People who produce the mangrove seeds, and then through the orders of the travelers would then plant and take the picture and monitor the plant for the carbon offsetting tourism projects. And we also seeing a different trend in tourist preferences post-pandemic. The shift is boosting opportunity into sustainable tourism and green jobs. What we are seeing is particularly pushed by the Gen Z and the millennials, that post-COVID-19, you have tourists more attracted and preferred towards inclusive and sustainable tourism. They will check within the hotel, would the hotel have the certifications, or they will choose not to put the towel on the floor, but rather to hang it throughout their stay. Things like this have been very evident. Food loss and food waste. More and more tourists now are engaging in the food loss and food waste program by not wasting the food that they're ordering. So this shift presents not just opportunities, but also challenges. How we enable the country to position itself. Bali and Indonesia have tried very, very hard to, over the last 5 years, to move towards sustainable tourism destinations. When you're in Bali, you're not just doing 3S of sun, sea, and sand, but we're also offering the new 3S of serenity, spirituality, and sustainability. And this is something that we could leverage through our cultural heritage, diverse ecosystems, warm hospitality, and we could create a unique and authentic experience, at the same time generate green jobs. Where are these jobs are generated? Not just in the areas like Nusa Dua, but we are also looking at more than 6,000 tourism villages across the country. So these are the new jobs being created, green jobs, and this is actually being available not just in the urban centers, but also in the rural areas. Indonesia's sustainable tourism initiative and collaboration opportunities are quite far and wide. We have issued from ministerial decree to setting up the Indonesian Sustainable Tourism Councils, and we also create collaborations with Jejak.in. I mentioned about the carbon calculator and offsetting platform. We also created this International Tourism Investment Forum, whereby we are attracting green investments in tourism. And next year, in 2025, we hope on the third editions, ILO can participate, and Pertamina also can participate. Tourism sector is also have now a roadmap to decarbonize, because we are targeting net zero by 2050, and we are cutting the 8% carbon emissions by 2035. So we have the standards and also the certifications, but needs to fulfill through upskilling, reskilling, and new skilling. So that's why we are very interested to join forces with some of the speakers, EU included, Excellency, to create this new skills that is needed to fulfill the green jobs. In closing, Indonesia made significant progress in sustainable tourism. It shows by the ranking. We moved up from the 32nd positions to 22nd positions by the Travel and Tourism Development Index issued by the World Economic Forum. I'm sorry, Excellency Dennis, but we are now ahead of Belgium in terms of tourism index. We are number 2 in ASEAN, only second to Singapore, but in the world global standard, we're ahead of New Zealand, we're ahead of Belgium, and we're ahead of Turkey. So we will continue to work together, and collaborations is the key. And I would like to extend our invitations for all of us to collaborate to build a stronger, more inclusive, and prosperous world. Finally, please allow me to read a pantun, to deliver a pantun. Some of you have waited for this pantun, Indonesian poem. This is an oral traditional poetic form in Indonesia, considered as the intangible cultural heritage of UNESCO. It consists of 4 stanzas, sentences, and ends with a rhyme. And normally people would then say after each line, cakep. All right, are you ready? Heading to Ubud where sculptures arise. Visiting Penglipuran village where cultural ties. Let's unite to build something bolder for a more inclusive and brighter future. Thank you, and I close with Paramasanti. Om Santi 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 Om. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much. Please remain on the stage as now we will continue with the group photo. Therefore, we would like to invite to join us here for a group photo Miss Poppy Sulistianing Winanti, His Excellency Mr. Danish Chaibi, Mr. Edwin Tan, Mr. Peter Van Roy, Miss Indira Pratyaksa. Please join us here. These are the whole speakers on the session as well as the moderator for the next session. And now we'll have a group photo with His Excellency Bapak Sandiaga Salahuddin Uno. Look at the main photographer. In 3, 2, 1. Please give a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, terima kasih. Thank you so much once again for a wonderful insights, which already show us about the current tourism industries, as well as with the nice closing, the pantun itself. Thank you so much once again to Bapak Sandiaga Salahuddin Uno, and thank you to all of the speakers as well as the moderator. You may now return back to your seat. Thank you so much. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we are still at the high-level forum, Multi-Stakeholders Partnership 2024, and now let us just start the Future of Work Catalyzing Just Transition towards Green Jobs in Developing and Least Developing Countries. And now let us just follow the details regarding this topic as we will now invite our moderator for the session. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome, this is our moderator, a professor of Global Political Economy from the Gajah Mada University. Please welcome on the stage, Miss Poppy Winanti.
Thank you, Ms. MC. It is an honor for me to be here to facilitate the discussion on a very important topic, the future of work, catalyzing just transition towards green jobs and in developing and least developed countries. I would like to invite our distinguished speakers for our panel. The first one, it is a great honor for me to invite His Excellencies, Mr. Denis Chaibi, the European Union Ambassador to Indonesia and Brunei Darussalam. I would like to also invite Ms. Indira Pratyaksa. She is the Vice President of Sustainability Program Rating and Engagement PT Pertamina Persero. The third speaker, I would like to invite Mr. Edwin Tan. He's the Deputy Director for Job Skills Insights Division and Director for Center for Skill First Best Practices Skills Future Singapore. Last but not least, I would like to invite Mr. Peter Van Roy. He's the Director of International Labor Office, Multilateral Partnerships and Development Cooperation Department. Well, good afternoon, everyone, ladies and gentlemen. Again, this is my pleasure to be here to moderating this session. I know it's late afternoon, but our minister is still here, so I think we are still in the good mood for discussing the very important topic. Thank you for all the speakers to be here with me. The topic of this panel is very significant and timely. I think our minister earlier has already explained it, how then the issues regarding sustainable development can also create future jobs, especially green jobs in Indonesia. We understand that the achievement on economic and social progress also depend on our nature and environment kind of condition. And in recent years, we have been witnessing that climate change and also environmental degradation have already threatened jobs and livelihoods across the globe. So that's why, while we are embracing this kind of climate change and also the environmental kind of degradation impacts, transition to a greener economy is kind of inevitable. In this context, then the transitions to a low carbon, resource efficient economy will also shift jobs, businesses, and also entire economies. This transition obviously will have also opportunities, despite the fact that it will also disturb the current situation. This panel, therefore, will be discussing further. There are several aspects that we will be discussing. We have a variety of background for our speakers for today. We are going to discuss the current reality of the jobs landscape, and then how then the outlook of the green economy transition will also affect the future work. We are going to also discuss how then we as the multi-stakeholders kind of people also will promote policy and workers' readiness for green jobs. Last but not least, we are also going to discuss how then the role of technology and international collaboration, international cooperation in building what we call as the connected global green workforce. So with this kind of background, I would like to invite first His Excellency, Mr. Daniel Chaibi, to elaborate particularly the key pillars of the EU green jobs. Especially we know that EU has quite significant policy framework in regard to the European Labour Authority in also facilitating this process. Please, time is yours, Mr. Ambassador.
Like this better? Thank you very much. First of all, I would like to congratulate the Indonesian authorities for organizing this week. I think that this week Indonesia is truly the center of the world. We have the Indonesia-Africa Forum, we have this high-level forum, and then we have also the Sustainability Forum coming Thursday, Friday. And if this was not sufficient, the Pope arrived this morning. So I think Indonesia is the center of the world this week, but more generally, the fact that sustainability is present the whole week and seen from the fourth most populous country in the world, the third democracy, the first Muslim nation, but the country that has the biggest biodiversity and that is crucial for the world is something that is very useful for the rest. We have to listen to events that are organized by Indonesia on this topic. So it is very, very, with a lot of humility and a lot of pride also that I'm here to be able to have an EU presence. Now, green jobs, it's very difficult. In the EU, our emissions peaked in '93. That was the peak of our emissions, carbon emissions. So we've been working at this for 25 years. And the last 5 years, we've done the Green Deal and lots of regulations, and some that Indonesia really doesn't like. But there are also lots of regulations that Europeans don't like. At the last European elections, the Green parties in some member states, not everywhere, but in some parts of Europe, it has receded. So we are experimenting with regulation, and it's difficult. It is difficult to find the right impact and to have the right creation of jobs. And the first point I want to make is it's such a difficult endeavor that in order to work, it goes both ways. People have to understand it really well so that they can support and sustain this effort, but they need also to live off it and to make a living out of it and to have jobs and added creation. And how you manage this complex interaction, bringing something to the table of sustainability but also receiving it, is very difficult, and we don't get everything right. But one thing that we try is, in this transition, is to make sure that the job is not something that we use to do social dumping. We try the green jobs to have a social dimension. So that's why the first thing that we favor, above all, is education. We try to have a higher added value. So what we try is to do green job creation that is equivalent with higher added value. Because green job can be understood as many, many different jobs. You know, working in agriculture is a green job. But is the aim of Europe to bring the level of employment in agriculture from the 3 or 4% that it is back to 20% where it was before? Not really, because the added value is more limited. The market is open, so there's less added value in the agricultural product, or I mean, at least at the one that Europe is producing. So we are focusing on higher added value. In doing that, what we really started, and which is the initial phase, is to understand what is a green job, is to categorize it. It seems silly for a non-specialist, but the definition of what is a green job has huge implications. So the one that have worked the most on what is a green job is actually ILO and UNEP, and they have done a body of definitions that has a lot of consequences of how you go about the green transition and how you provide this added value. So basically, the way you categorize jobs as green has a huge impact on the kind of incentives that you can give to develop and encourage this creation of jobs. So it means it starts with tax incentives, support from government for educational programs, but it can extend to banks. When banks have to provide a loan to a company or things, they can look at the categorization of job, what is green job, and have better things. So once you have this approach of what is a green job, then you can, with those categories, develop incentives. So one thing that we did in Europe is we provided a database called ESCO that categorized all the job, and for any job, so position, you have the qualification, which is the formal degree, and then you have the skills, competencies, and what kind of support can be given. So that individuals can see what kind of skills they can acquire to get jobs, and the companies can map out their needs and the kind of people they want to recruit. So we started with a database, and now we are developing taxonomy, so tax incentives, and then finance. What we do overall, once we pass that stage, is we do partnerships with companies. So we feel that for the green jobs to be really something that is embraced by the corporate world has to be at the heart of it. So what we've done in Europe, we have set aside more or less 10 billion euro a year to fund partnership between companies and individuals that is really focused on vocational trainings. The companies know better what the need for green jobs are than the government. So the government funds the support for training, but the companies determine what is needed. We do also this at a more formal level of education, which is higher university. But for university, what we favor is exchange. So we do all universities around Europe and with the rest of the world. So we support UN program like PAGE. We support German program like JetCR, which puts together former coal mining cities and see how they can move towards a green job. And in Indonesia, the biggest initiative of the EU is the JETP, because it's about decarbonization of the grid, and that would provide a lot of green jobs. The final things you mentioned, the European Labour Authority. So there it's about mobility. Often what we're going to have in the green transition is two phenomena that involves mobility. First of all, cities attract more added value job and requires more support for green facilities. So you will have more green jobs in cities, paradoxically, because a lot of management of energy, of waste and things is in the concentration. But what you're going to have also, especially in Indonesia, is that the center of renewable energy are actually not in Java. Geothermal is in Sumatra, wind is Sulawesi. So you're going to have also the possibility of developing jobs in those things. But that, in both cases, either towards cities or towards the center of renewable energy, you're going to have mobility. And labor mobility is not easy. People have to leave their family, their context. They have to provide a kind of passports of skills. So in Europe, we have really worked hard on this. So we have this skills passport, we have this social scheme. And it is surprising, but we have now more labor mobility, of high-skilled labor mobility in Europe than in the US. So in the US, one country, one language, has less professional mobility high-end of green jobs than Europe, because we have really worked at it, and we have this thanks to the labor authority. So to sum up, fundamental to have green jobs, to sustain the effort, really difficult to do it. Starts with a strong definition, around the definition building of incentives, building of education program, a lot of exchanges of scientific experts with the rest of the world, and then mobility, mobility, mobility.
Thank you, Ambassador. It's very insightful. With the experience of the EU, and I think it's a very comprehensive policy that you have there, how do you think it can be transferred or probably, applied to other countries, especially developing or least developed countries, based on that kind of experience in the EU, how then those experience can also be, applied or implemented in other countries outside the EU? What do you think?
I have no idea, in the sense that, the contexts are very different. And I know that Europe is often criticized to give lessons, and we really have no lessons to give. It's very difficult in this. We are in a higher GDP world for us, so we are looking at, the higher value as the first objective. We have a very formal employment economy, whereas Indonesia is 50% at least of informal. Indonesia has 30% of its workforce in agriculture. We have 4%. So there are fundamental things. What I can see is that Indonesia has incredible opportunities. Young population. We are old, declining. We are difficult with immigration. So we have difficulties to fill in the job. We really have a difficulty to fill in the job, and our people have been trained for combustion engine and consumption, and they have to be retrained, which is much harder than for young people to go straight. It's in Indonesia, Indonesians are much better with technologies than Europeans, because they went straight to the mobile phone and they do everything on their living by Mandiri. In Europe, people are 50 years old, they look and they say, it's not working. Yeah. It's very different. So Indonesia has really the demographic dividend and the possibility of jumping straight. But above all, Indonesia has incredible natural resources. For us, we don't have the resources that Indonesia has. So it's all about transformation, import, and things. The biggest resource is coal, and that's a complicated one. But nickel, bauxite, and above all, solar, wind, geothermal is in abundance here. And if this was not sufficient, thanks to the forests and even the pocket in the sea, you have huge possibility for carbon credit markets. You can trap carbon, but you can also reforest, which can bring massive carbon credit because you have massive territory. So the opportunities are great, and even the fact that it's an archipelago, which is difficult in economic terms, provide opportunities for hydrogen. It can be, a desert island is much better at storing hydrogen that can then be used for navies and shipping. So there are lots and lots of opportunities. It is for Indonesia to choose. The models that are present in the world, you have the kind of green transition, you have the Chinese model. You don't rely too much on the market, you command, you do strategic investment long time in advance, and you kind of cannibalize the market and you become the first in solar panels or the first in electric vehicles. That is a form of transition. You can have a US transition. You put the IRA, Inflation Reduction Act, so basically you print dollars so that you attract all the top companies and all the investments and the technology comes to your country, and therefore you become a green giant, but through technology and money. And the European model is about tax incentives and using more of a level playing field, but it's not easy. So there's not one model that is perfect. Each nation has to adopt the model that corresponds to its political systems, to its interests, to the support of the people. But one thing that is important for us is that for higher added value, the interaction with the rest of the world is important. China exports lots of electric vehicles. China sources its nickel here. So China is doing well, but being open to the world as well. And here, lots of companies are protected, and the economy is protected. And we feel that a level of openness would bring higher added value and would bring in technology and investment that could be useful for the creation of higher added value green jobs. So that would be the one thing where openness is important. And if we look at the example of the Minister on Tourism, that's really an example of openness. All the tourists coming in and being able to pay for these mangroves and all these things. So openness, I think, can be a good element in the creation of green jobs.
Thank you again, Ambassador. A very insightful response. Please give a round of applause for the Ambassador. Well, I'll go into Mr. Edwin Tan. After listening to Ambassador's experience in Europe, now we are going to listen to your institution's research based on Singapore's experience, especially regarding how do you think the significant global trends that will reshape the future of work in these coming decades. What is it, in your opinion and your institutional opinion, regarding the outlook of the green skills during or in that trends? Would you like to elaborate on that, please?
Thank you for that question, and good afternoon, everyone. First and foremost, I would like to thank the Indonesian government for inviting me to speak at this forum. It's my pleasure to share with everyone on Singapore's experience, and also at the same time to hear from other countries and other organizations on how you tackle the same issues at hand. On your question on some of the trends that we've been noticing over at Singapore, I'm personally in the space of analyzing jobs and skills. So if you ask me that question, I would say that one prominent trend that we would want to take note of is this trend on job hybridization. So what is job hybridization? It refers to the merging and blending of multiple skill sets and sometimes even multiple job roles into a single job. This phenomenon is especially prevalent when a new area opens up in a sector. And one new area we can think of is the green economy, right? And the green economy is hitting many sectors at the same time. And because the green economy is a relatively new area, it's expected that how employers react to some of these new areas could be quite cautious. So what do I mean by that? Instead of, at least based on what we have observed, right, rather than seeing employers jumping headlong into recruiting full-time green jobs, so as to speak, they took a more wait-and-see and cautionary stance. So what they did at least in Singapore, was that they started by asking their existing workers in existing job roles to first pick up green skills at the start, right? So when we think about it, this sort of a transitional kind of phase that we are in now is quite logical and it's quite natural because it's new, right? Everyone just wants to take a bit of a wait and see approach. And that being the case, what we found was that at this stage of development, skills seems to be evolving a lot quicker than job roles in a very new space. And that brings me to what I have sort of, maybe I need to click, I didn't know that it wasn't there. Oops. Okay, so I flashed something on the screen. It's quite a complicated diagram, but allow me to just take everyone through it. So I was sharing earlier that because skills are evolving a lot faster than job roles in this particular respect, it is very important to instill some kind of framework to help us to monitor and manage the skills across the whole ecosystem. And if we think about skills as a form of currency, that is money, right? It's in our interest to make sure that currency is well circulated across the whole economy. And the same principle applies to skills. In order to unlock the full potential of skills, we want to make sure that the skills are carried throughout the whole ecosystem. So maybe allow me to just spend some time to just share about some key concepts around this, what I've put on the screen, an action framework for skills. It starts with skills identification. First, we need to identify the skills and classify the skills. For skills that are important today, we classify them as in-demand skills, important in time to come, emerging skills, and skills that are important sometime down the road, future skills. But why do we want to classify skills? We classify skills because the timing in which we develop skills in the workforce is very critical. If you do it too quickly, the industry is not ready to utilize these skills. If you do it too late, we might have missed the boat. So it is important, the timing-wise is very critical for us to take note in developing skills. And it's not just about classifying skills, we will also need to consider overlaying labor market information onto skills to help us to answer questions such as, how many employers are exactly asking for these skills? Where do these employers come from? Which industries? How many job roles are asking for the same kind of skills? This information is important, and what Singapore does is that we will then share this information with education providers to help them to sort of put in place an optimal training capacity to anticipate demand for skills. This information is also important to help our education providers to contextualize skills in their training program. Similarly, this information we will also share with enterprises, not so much to tell them about in-demand skills because they should know better than anyone what is in demand, but more importantly is to share with them emerging skills and future skills. Because employers being employers, they may just be concerned about the today, they may not be paying enough attention to skills that are more important in the future that will put them in a good position if they were to take on these skills. And similarly, we will also share this information in Singapore with the individuals because individuals will need to know what are the skills that are required for a job, and hopefully with this information, they will be guided to pick up these skills before they even apply for a job. And after we have done all this, we've informed people about the different types of skills, the level of demand for the skills, and worked with our education providers to make sure that the capacity is there. There is still no guarantee that training will happen, right? And that could be because of a variety of reasons. It could be because that the cost of training is still very prohibitive, too expensive. And when it comes to that, what we do is that the government will then work with industry bodies to consider very targeted subsidies for very strategic skills that has a very tight time sensitivity nature to it. So we do it very sparingly to sort of nudge, right, employers to want to come forward to hopefully send their workers for some of this skills training after we have lowered the cost of training. Of course, we don't do this permanently. We hope that over time, there can be economies of skills, and over time, when employers start to see the value of some of these skills, they'll be more prepared to pay more to send their workers for training. And then we've come to a stage where, all right, and now we have people that have gone through training, they pick up some skills. What we want to see next is really for the workers to apply their skills at the workplace. I'm not so sure why, but based on Singapore's experience, it's not a very natural thing that will happen. So we basically need to set the conditions right at the workplace for this to happen. We do this in a few ways. We could either work with employers to redesign their jobs so that the redesigned jobs have a clear mandate to apply some of these skills. Sometimes we work with employers to sort of transform their businesses, to integrate new business models into their business so that there is more latitude to also apply some of these new skills. But sometimes the solution can be a very simple one. We simply have to involve the line managers and the supervisors very early on at the start of a training so that they endorse the training programs and they are vested at the end of the program to make sure that the workers apply their skills back at work. And once the workers have applied the skills at work, I think the ball is then back to the employer's court because now that they have done that, employers ought to recognize and reward workers for putting their skills to work, especially when applying these skills resulted in positive business outcome. This is very important, and it's also a very difficult sort of a problem to deal with in Singapore because it entails putting in some kind of reward system within companies, right, to create a virtuous cycle so that more workers within the company will want to upskill and reskill because they know that once they've done that, they'll be recognized by their employers for it. I notice I'm running out of time, but I just want to point our attention to the middle of the circle, right? In addition to what I just shared, for all this to work, there's still two very key ingredients that need to be set in place. I term this as critical enablers. The first one is to have in place a common job skills taxonomy that clearly articulates all the skills that are needed for any given job, that clearly articulates the content of a skill so that anyone you ask in the ecosystem, they will all come back to the same answer, what this skill is all about. What does it mean for someone to have the skill? What does it translate into in terms of the abilities you need to demonstrate to prove that you have the skill, the knowledge you need to possess to inform people that you have the skill. So a taxonomy is critical. The next critical ingredient here is to foster a skills-first mindset. So what is this about? It's trying to move employers and individuals away from thinking about their past paper qualifications, thinking of how many years of service they've been in the same job, their years of experience, their seniority. Set all of this aside. Look at the skill sets that you have with you today. Ask yourself, are you still relevant for your current job? Ask yourself, with the skills that you have, are you ready to transit to the next job? So what I just shared is a framework that my center have put in place to sort of engender some of this flow of skills across the entire ecosystem. And if you're interested to find out more, I'm more than happy to share more with any one of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Edwin. I think it's very interesting to listen to your explanation regarding the experience of Singapore. We will get back to that issue later. Now I'm going to ask Pak Peter. I think the focus of your presentation will be on the aspect of ensuring what we mean by the just transition for green jobs, right? So would you like to share, in your opinion, what is the outlook of the green jobs demands, especially when we're talking about the conditions in developing or least developing countries?
Terima kasih. Thank you very much, Ibu Poppy, and delight to listen to the colleagues here in the panel. Thank you also, the government of Indonesia, to bring us together, and I'll come back to that because this is an opportunity to learn from each other, but also see how we can build on this and work together. So yes, Ibu, just transition. This is something that is very popular these days, and I think for very good reasons. I think it's important that we remind ourselves of the importance of the green economy, and within that, green jobs. and I think we heard it yesterday and today, but we are in a crisis as a planet. We pay a lot of attention to economic development, but fortunately, we are also realizing that development actually has 3 dimensions. Not only the economic development, but also the social development and the environmental development. So where these 3 come together, this is where we can make real progress, including the sustainability of this. And in order to address this need of working towards progress, to protect this planet and protect the way of our lives, we have this just transition towards that with green jobs at the center. Now, green jobs, and I'm appreciative of the ambassador mentioning this. You could find many definitions. I think we're getting closer to more accepted definitions, but there's still different interpretations of what are green jobs. And in the beginning, and I was here in 2007 in Indonesia until 2014 as well, it was very much on how do we make existing jobs less bad from an environmental perspective. And increasingly the emphasis is shifting towards how can these jobs also be a positive contributor to the environment. So yes, we have taxonomies and it's great, a great example also that we can build on this. Not to copy and paste, but for inspiration and adaptation. Or as you say in Bahasa Indonesia, lain lebuk, lain belalang. So it's not about copying, but you don't have to start from scratch either. And I think that's one of the main points. So green jobs, just to give you some numbers, because in addition to the challenge, there are many opportunities. We estimate 43 million jobs to be created in renewable energy until 2050. 20 million jobs until 2030 in the eco-restoration, 7 to 8 million jobs in the circular economy, many jobs in agriculture, not the new types of jobs in agriculture. That's just the beginning. There will be a lot more that will be coming up that offers the opportunities to contribute to a just transition. Jobs that we don't even think of today. And some of the jobs that we think of today, but 10 years ago we didn't think of. So the just transition is very much about the green jobs. One of the important topics in this, and everything is about challenge and opportunity. So it's also about the skills development that was touched on by Edwin as well, by the ambassador. This is very important because it's one thing that the potential of the jobs is there. It's another thing that the labor force has these competencies. And that's not only a question of do they have the competencies at some point. It's about being effective and being efficient. It's about having these competencies today where the jobs are now, but it's also about investing in the training for the jobs that will be coming. Now, this will not be perfect. But we can make this a smoother transition, and once again, that's also a reason why it's good to come together. In the EU, what is the experience? What's the experience in Indonesia? What's the experience in Africa? And in this regard, I think here's another example of what the ILO can offer and the way we work, because not everybody may know we are an organization that is governed by not only governments of almost all countries in the world, but also employers and workers' organizations. And in fact, when I was here before, in addition to all what we do with government employers and workers, is also to see that we can pull in the voice of the private sector better in terms of not only what are the competency needs today, but where are they tomorrow and after tomorrow. And I think that's also the case for green jobs. That's an example of where this skill anticipation, we can make this smoother. And there's a role to be played by government, but increasingly there's also a role to be played by private sector. We heard in the previous session about how many schools will be set up and the role of private sector in terms of training these staff members. But also to have the means to scale this up quickly, Government has certain advantages, private sector has certain advantages to build on this together, where the foundation is built by government through STEM, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, but also other types of skills, because increasingly we see about what some people refer to as life skills, how you communication, how you work together, how you solve problems. So it's a whole package, and how you do this together. So there's a role to be played by the private sector as well. I think the ambassador also touched on the importance of skills, mutual recognition, whether it's within the EU or whether it's within ASEAN, and this is also something we supported when it was launched in 2012, the ASEAN skills recognition. Once again, it's an opportunity for skills mobility, because in the short term, there may be certain skills that you do not avail sufficiently of, and that may be elsewhere, whereas others have it, but also as an opportunity to learn from each other how you build those skills and to come up with these standards for effectiveness and efficiency reasons as well. Skills, the investment, and I remember I was in a staff exchange with the private sector, and I was clearly told that this is not a cost, this is an investment. So I got the message, this is an investment into the future, into making sure these skills are there so that these green jobs can be realized as well. So something more in general in terms of the guidelines for this just transition. We have developed these in 2015, but last year during our International Labour Conference, where governments, the member states, the employers and the workers from all countries across the globe that are members of the ILO came together, these, through a resolution, have been adopted. So these are clear guidelines that can assist all member states to see how to do this, how to realize job-rich economic growth that is socially, environmentally, and economically. It's inclusive to realize also the social justice that we're striving for, that is in a dialogue, but also addresses a very important dimension, which is how to finance that, because it's nice to say, well, this is all possible, but how do we finance that? I don't have the time to elaborate on this, but this is something that we are addressing as well. And that is part of how we can support countries, employers and workers through policy advice, through technical assistance, through sharing good practices to facilitate South-South cooperation, because what Indonesia is doing now and what it has done is a very rich knowledge base for other countries in the world to build on, and vice versa. So that's also something that we facilitate. So in short, I would say 3 points. One, the importance of this just transition, for which we need green jobs. Two, that this challenge is an opportunity as well. We know of many opportunities that are here today and that are coming, and there will be others that we're not aware of today. And three, that this is something, and I think this is why it fits so well yesterday and today, this is something where we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can build on what others are doing. We can combine resources, and together we can also go up to scale, complement where we have comparative advantages, or as a former Indonesian president would have said, bersama kita bisa, together we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Peter. I think it's also very interesting to see how then the ILO now has also the envision regarding the just transition. You mentioned also something about the role of the private sector, and we are honored here also to have the perspective from the private sector today. Ibu Indira, it is really great to have you here to share the experience, especially from Pertamina's experience, mostly on the upskilling and reskilling the manpower for the green jobs. Would you like to elaborate on that aspect, please? Thank you.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Ms. Poppy. Good afternoon, distinguished guests and fellow speakers. It's an honor. I'm here to represent Pertamina at this high-level forum on multi-stakeholders partnership. Today, I would like to share Pertamina's perspective and our ongoing effort in upskilling and reskilling the workforce for green jobs as we navigate the transition to more sustainability, low-carbon future. Okay, sorry. The world is currently experiencing several significant megatrends, especially for the energy sectors. The top three are changes in the energy mix, geopolitical conditions, and climate change. The energy mix is shifting towards cleaner and more reliable sources due to rising demand for clean energy. Geopolitical issues are causing the price fluctuation and supply changes, highlighting the need for affordability energy. Climate change is pushing efforts to reduce emission and achieve net zero emission targets. These trends are interconnected and impact the balance between energy security, energy equity, and sustainability, and we know it as the energy trilemma. Addressing this trend is crucial for sustainability energy future. Well, Pertamina always upholds its commitment to provide energy and develop new renewable energy in order to support the creation of national energy independence. Holding the mandate as a holding company in the energy sectors since being established by Ministry of State-Owned Enterprise of Republic Indonesia on June 2020, Pertamina now has a very strategic role in overseeing subholding operating in energy sectors from upstream to downstream. Pertamina dual growth strategy reflects our ambitions to remain a dominant player in Indonesia's energy sectors while transitioning toward a more sustainability future. By focusing on both traditional and renewable energy focus, Pertamina aims to secure its position rapidly changing energy landscape, ensuring continued growth, and aligning with global sustainability goals. Pertamina's dual growth strategy is designed to be mutually reinforcing by continuing to invest in extract and value from its traditional oil and gas operation. The company can generate the necessary capital to fund its expansion into renewable energy and new technology. At the same time, by diversifying into cleaner energy source, Pertamina is preparing for a future where demand for fossil fuel may decline, thus ensuring long-term business sustainability. Pertamina has been identified two strategic pillars to support its net zero aspiration for Scope 1 and 2 emissions, as well as to lead Indonesia into the energy transition. These pillars are essential to aligning the company with global sustainability goals while maintaining its operational effectiveness and market position. The two pillars are designed to be complementary. By decarbonizing its core operations, Pertamina can reduce its immediate environmental impact and prepare its traditional businesses for a low-carbon future. Simultaneously, by expanding into new renewable energy, the company is building a portfolio that aligns with global energy trends and position itself as a leader in Indonesia's energy transition. Our 4 moonshots is about the biofuel, petrochemical, geothermal, CCS, CCUS implementation. This drive significant progress that in reducing carbon emissions and supporting Indonesia's energy transition. Okay, now we are talking about our response to just transition. The principle of just transition, I quoted from ILO, that the manner is ensuring that no one is left behind. This approach is crucial for creating decent work opportunities and addressing the human dimensions of the energy transition. The implementation of just transition will face challenges such as revenue losses, job displacement, and economic insecurity for workers and communities reliant on the industry. To address this, we need strategic investment, economic diversification, and education or skill development. Pertamina is committed to increasing its focus on low-carbon businesses and ensuring a just transition for all stakeholders. This involves not only shifting our energy mix towards more sustainability source, but also addressing the social and economic impacts of this transition. Pertamina building sustainability capabilities through the Pertamina Sustainability Academy. PSA was launched at Indonesia Sustainability Forum 2023 by CEO of Pertamina, and this PSA aims to drive the sustainability agenda within the Pertamina Group for more than 40,000 employees across all levels, from CEOs to frontliners. The Academy offers innovative delivery methods, including in-person workshop led by top-tier experts and self-paced digital learning. And this custom pathway combine interactive masterclass and in-person workshop, catering the diverse learning needs, aspiration, and interests of our workforce. This is the building blocks that how we can build and map the competency needs in each level within the organization. And these blocks tailored as a sustainability technical school, sustainability transcendent forum, and various certification programs covering economic, environmental, social, and governance aspect. So it's not just about the sustainability, talking about ESG, but also about the economic. And to emphasize it, Pertamina has the Pertamina Energy Academy. It's a flagship program designed to prepare Pertamina for its business transition toward a greener energy future. And this program is focused on leadership skill, project management, commercial exposure, technical expertise, network environment, and future of energy. The program also highlights core values such as commitment to sustainability, building a future-ready talent pool, excellent in execution, and fostering innovation and technology. Specific initiatives include CO2 management courses and green project execution, which are crucial for achieving our sustainability goals. Okay, Pertamina also collaborate, yeah, like you already mentioned, we need to collaborate. The collaboration is wider stakeholders that we develop in green jobs and advancing sustainability. Pertamina is actively contributing to the development of Ibu Kota Nusantara through the establishment of Pertamina Sustainability Energy Center. This center fosters innovation and in sustainability energy solution for a greener future. And our partnership focus on several key initiatives. The first is about the Research and Innovation Center for Sustainability Low Carbon Technology. The second is about Sustainability Academy. The third is Vocational Education Center. We're gonna have a vocational school and master class also, master background for education background. And low carbon and sustainability infrastructure, lab and test center, and special cluster for indigenous flora and fauna conservation. And we also partnering with global organizations to advance sustainability and support the transition to cleaner energy. Collaboration with entities like Japan Organization for Metal and Energy Security, or JOGMEC, USAID, Japan Cooperation Center Petroleum, or GCCP, and the New Energy and Industry Technology Development Organization, or NIDO, focus on initiatives such as measuring and quantifying methane emission, development green hydrogen and ammonia technology, and implementing the Oil and Gas Partnership Program, OGMP 2.0 reporting framework. These partnerships are crucial for achieving our net zero targets by 2060 or sooner. Through this collaborations effort, we aim to create a robust framework for developing green jobs and promoting sustainability by working together with global organizations and leveraging our internal capabilities. Thank you.
Please give a round of applause to Ibu Indra. Thank you, Ibu Indra. I think it's also really interesting to hear how then private sector like Pertamina is also doing sort of like, you know, effort in providing the green jobs and also towards more green economy. Well, now I would like to give the opportunity for the audience. We have several sort of like key points that the speakers have already discussed. I see a lady in the middle. Yes, please. And then others probably. If, okay, another lady over here. Probably one more audience on the back. No, not yet. In front? Oh, okay. On the back, please. Well, would you please introduce yourself briefly, your name, your affiliation, and the country? And then if you have a very specific question, to whom that you're going to address your question, please do so. Otherwise, you can say that each speaker can respond to your question. Please, Ibu.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. My name is Nurigawati Rahayu. I'm from Bappenas. I'm working in Bappenas dealing with the manpower sector. So thank you. And we also right now improve our in the green jobs. I mean, our understanding what's the transportation. Actually, it's already for several years in terms of the climate change issues and others. And thank you very much for the ambassador also saying that it's quite difficult of defining what the green job is, and it's specific for each country. Also, Pak Van Ruiz is already also mentioned about that. My question is to Pak Edwin B. Pak. It's interesting to know that the Singapore, especially in terms of economic, actually Singapore is already high advanced than Indonesia. So maybe I have two questions. First is that how big green jobs right now in Singapore? Have you maybe calculated in the terms of number or proportion of the green jobs? And the second one, how Singapore also, maybe you have a figure that the green job is already contributed to the economic in Singapore as the whole. Maybe the contribution from the green jobs to the economic of the Singapore as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Mega. The second, oh, yes, please, yes.
Thank you for all the speakers. Thank you for all the speakers. My name is Maharani, also from Bappenas. I think my question is specifically for Edwin Tan from Singapore, and also Pak Peter from ILO. Because you know the condition of Indonesia is very diverse. We have a lot of populations like with various background, also various education level. So my question is, do you have like any specific inputs for us to make sure that the skills acquired is spread among this kind of society? Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Maha. The last, okay, please, yes.
Yeah, thank you for the given opportunity, moderator. Thank you for the great presentation from all the panelists. My name is Marcelino, and I'm from, I guess I could say, from private sector. And I want to ask a few questions to Bu Indira as expert in sustainability in Pertamina. Maybe Bu Indira could share to, especially to private sectors that are trying to transition to sustainability, to sustainable companies, like for example on how to start making the framework for the future, especially in creating more jobs in the future relating to sustainable. Thank you.
Thank you for all the questions. We have 3 questions, but then it seems that Pak Edwin is the most popular one. Then I would like to give the time to Pak Edwin first, then Pak Peter, and then Bu Indira. And the Mr. Ambassador, if you would like to also jump in, especially regarding the what you can give the Indonesia's government kind of advice, you can also add to that kind of aspect. Please, Pak Edwin.
Sure, thank you for the questions. Let me try to address them to the best of my ability, and I'm also trying to remember some of the questions that I've heard. So there was a question about how big are green skills in Singapore. I would say that in Singapore, we're also facing the same challenge as what Ambassador, as well as Peter has mentioned. Trying to define what exactly are green jobs is tough. And that's because there is something in between, and this is what in Singapore, I'm not sure in other countries, we also term as greening jobs, right? So these are existing jobs, and yet they're taking on some of these green skills, but we can't quite segregate them. Are they quite the same job as they are before, or they are beginning to take on some very different characteristics altogether? So definition-wise, in Singapore, we also face some of these issues in identifying what exactly are green jobs. If you ask me how big are green jobs, I would say that definition aside, it's quite dispersed, and the numbers are quite different across different kinds of horizontal sectors that Singapore has identified. So what are some of these horizontal sectors? It includes sustainable reporting. It includes things like, to some extent, carbon trading as well. And some of the vertical sectors that Singapore have identified are quite typical, energy and power. And then earlier on, I also mentioned that green economy is something that's hitting many sectors in more than one way. So how in Singapore we tried to deal with this, just get our heads around what is actually happening is the government pull together industry leaders as well as academics, and then we sit down and really try to do some structured planning in how we want to prepare our workforce for possible emerging green jobs. Right? Actually, I prepared a slide. I want to talk about this, but then I ran out of time. But I'll just share very quickly. In Singapore, we are taking on a sectoral approach in planning for emerging green jobs and skills, right? We thought that's the best way to do it at this point in time. There's only 4 very basic steps in how we carry out this planning. First, we attempt to identify the priority areas that Singapore feels that we can best value add in, right? And then after that, we will identify all the economic activities associated with this. Over the past few days, I keep hearing this example on electric vehicles, so I will also use this example here. So, for instance, for electric vehicles, Singapore may well decide that raw materials refining is not an area that Singapore wants to go into because other countries can do it better than us. Singapore will also not go into the space of vehicle assembly because you need a lot of space to build huge factories, and Singapore is so small, and space is a huge premium, right? On the other hand, Singapore may decide that we want to go into battery R&D. We want to go into precision engineering on small components, be it semiconductors or be it sensors that are used in electric vehicles. So that was how in Singapore we decided that where electric vehicles are concerned, we only want to play in some of these spaces, right? And after we have identified the priority areas, we next sit down with industry to have very deep conversations on, okay, so what are some of the jobs and skills that we need to thrive in these areas that we said we wanted to play very well in? What exactly are these emerging jobs? How many do you really need? Are we really talking about emerging new jobs, or are we talking about existing jobs that we will need to infuse with new green skills? Again, what are these green skills? What are these jobs? How many do you need? So we try to go down into the specifics. And once we know what we want, the jobs and the skills that we want, then we do a gap analysis. We look back and we stock take on today, what kind of jobs and skills do we have? So you can well imagine, right? I know what jobs and skills I need. I know what jobs and skills I have today. Then I'll just need to do sort of a simple gap analysis to size up what is this gap. And once we know the gap, we can proceed to talk about the how. How do we want to deal with the gap? We ask ourselves questions such as, do you immediately need to fill this gap? Is it so urgent that there is really no time to train the locals to pick up these skills, and we need to very quickly bring in foreign experts to just tie us over this period, and then over time we will build capabilities in our locals? We also ask questions such as, what is the best way to train this skill? Must it always be classroom-based? Can we do some kind of online asynchronous learning so that workers can access these skills anytime, anywhere, right? So that we address the typical pain points of employers on, they're finding it very hard to release their workers for training because they just can't spare the fact that they're away from work. So why not we make the training accessible anywhere? Then we also talk about, maybe there's some kind of skills that you can't really just do online. You really need the hands-on. Oh, if that's the case, why not we build these skills directly into a structured on-the-job training within the company itself? Then you don't even need to leave the company. You will work and learn at the same time. So I guess these are some of the things that Singapore tries to do to try to get a grip over how to tackle and advance during this green economy transition. It's a long answer, but let me see if there's anything else I should talk about. Okay, maybe I just touch on just a little bit on maybe some learning points from Singapore's experience, and then I just want to share to see if you think it's useful. It has to do with how we carry out green skills policy making. I think policies should facilitate two things, broadly speaking. One is on signaling, the other one is on improving access. Signaling is important because it is not always obvious what kind of skills are important, right? What kind of skills are important, how long more they will remain as important, how many employers are asking for that skill. And that's because there's some form of information asymmetry in the market. That's understandable because in order to really know what's happening in the economy, someone needs to sit down and decide to churn some data, do market analysis, do big data analysis on a job vacancy information to uncover some of this insight. So in Singapore, there is a dedicated resource allocated to do some of this work because we know that it's simply not possible for any individual or employer to do this. On improving access, beyond just trying to throw money at a problem, which is clearly not sustainable, I also mentioned about looking at different ways of conducting training, right? On-the-job training, it could be online training, and we could also explore tax incentives, which I also heard over the past few days, how to nudge employers in really motivating them to release their workers for skilling.
Thank you very much for some of the challenging questions. And I think it's an indicator that there's still a lot that we need to better understand, that we need to learn, and that we need to capture. And there's a little bit the answer of the question of how these skills, these green skills, will spread over society as well. And I think the starting point is perhaps already indicating how difficult the challenge is. I mean, if you ask now what are the skills in any given country, I don't think you'll get a full answer on that. So it will be at best a proxy. But let me not take the easy way. I'll try to get a closer one. But related to this is also a very important point, which I think is also important for the just transition, but in general for a lot of countries, which is the formalization of the informal economy. We heard today an estimate of about 50% of Indonesia, but there are plenty of countries that go up to 90% of the workforce in the informal economy. And I'm saying this to already highlight the challenge of how to capture these skills. Now, obviously, with a better understanding, starting with definitions, with a taxonomy that was mentioned as well, the types of job, and what is required, we can have a better understanding what constitute the competencies for this. And that allows us then to invest in this, not only for people who are coming into the market, but also the reskilling, the upskilling for people who are transitioning to other jobs. And that helps us to better understand how these green skills, quote unquote, will be spreading. And a very important dimension of this is not only the training of this, but also the recognition and the certification. The certification, not only, as I mentioned, the challenge of certification of people who are in the informal economy, but actually a very important reason from an ILO perspective as well is that this puts a premium on what competencies people have and how they can get better jobs. So I think that's an additional, very important reason. that these green jobs are not only helping towards a just transition to a better world, better planet, but also for people to have better jobs in the first place, or what we call decent work, or as you call it in Bahasa Indonesia, pekerjaan yang layak untuk semua.
Oh, okay. Oh yeah. Yeah, Mas Marcelino, thank you for your questions. I would like to say that currently in Pertamina, less than 5% of Pertamina's workforce is focused on renewable energy. So this is an opportunity. But the opportunity needs skills, needs the new skill, especially for green skills. So right now we are going to establish Pertamina Sustainability Energy Center in IKN. In there, we're gonna build many clusters like I already present. And you can join with some activities over there and be part of Pertamina in sustainability labs or sustainability masterclass or sustainability academy or in a vocational academy and do some more research about the biodiversity also. And to join with Pertamina, actually, to give an opportunity for the job seeker, Pertamina also give an opportunity by internship program. You can join and check in our website. And periodically, we recruit some experiences workers to join with Pertamina, especially with the green background education. Yeah. Thank you.
Indonesia has the Vision 2045 to basically get to a certain level of GDP per capita and basically to avoid the middle income trap. So it is the vision of Indonesia to get to these jobs that have a high added value. So our experience in Europe and our projection is that not all green jobs will have a super high added value, but the majority of them will have. A majority of the jobs of high added value will be one way or another related to more sustainable. Why? Because we are pricing in everything we do. We start to price in the cost of externalities. So the cost of pollution, the cost of use of water, the cost of use of energy starts to be priced into the productivity of the job. So the more environmental the job is, the higher added value, because the differential with the price is different. Why I'm saying that? Because we are doing that, we are creating demand for green jobs. We are creating demand by objectives that then have an impact on the economy. Creating this demand is very courageous. It requires societal choice. Now, let me give you a concrete example. In Europe, in many countries, the biggest federation of employers were the steel employers, because not of steel, but because of cars. So the car lobby in Europe was the most powerful in negotiating wages, in negotiating. So they were against pricing the externality, because the externality for a combustion engine and for the production of a car with the steel and thing is high. So we priced in and we developed, for example, a new army of workers who insulate house. Something different. But we did a trade-off between two federations of employees. So now, it is very painful. If you have a house in Belgium, it has to be zero emission by 2050. So in less than 25 years, it has to be zero emission. And the cost of insulation for some of the house is basically 50% of the purchasing price. 50%. If you have a cheap house, insulating fully, if it has been built before 1980, will be 50%. But you have 25 years to program it, and then you have a house that basically is very, very economic to run, because you have almost zero consumption of energy. This is the kind of how we create demand. It's very complicated, but it has to be about societal choice. And Bappenas obviously has a very strong role to play. But also, vested interests have to be involving in seeing the opportunities, the money that is to make in, for example, carbon trading, in in carbon pricing. Once the big economic interests see that in Indonesia, it can unroll very fast, but this is the phase that is very difficult.
Thank you, Ambassador. Thank you, all the speakers. My apologies that I wouldn't give any chance for the audience to raise any questions because we're running out of the time. But please allow me to ask you to also give a round of applause to the speakers. It's been a very fruitful and very insightful discussion. We know that the topic today is very important. We have these two very important aspects, just transitions and green jobs. As we discussed earlier, it creates opportunities, but it also disrupts the existing conditions for jobs and our economies. But I would like to spread optimism as our speakers have today. Then with that, we are going to conclude this kind of discussion. Thank you so much for your attention and all the speakers. Thank you.
Thank you so much once again to our moderator as well as to all of the speakers in this session. You may now return back to your seat. So this is also marks the conclusions of our session, which were moderated by Ms. Poppy Winanti and also the whole speakers. Thank you once again to His Excellency Mr. Dennis Chaibi, Mr. Edwin Tan, Mr. Peter Van Roy, and Ms. Indira Pratyaksa. So ladies and gentlemen, now we realize that the green jobs have a vast range, catering to diverse skills, SATs, and also career interests. And green jobs are very crucial as well to change in the way we live and also how we act, interact to the environment. So once again, thank you so much for your presence and also for your active participation during these thematic sessions, The Future of Work, Catalyzing the Just Transition Towards Green Jobs in Developing and Least Developed Countries. So on behalf of the organizing committee, we have to conclude our session and we thank you once again. Have a wonderful stay here in Bali. And finally, I'm Dian Ariswari signing off. And once again, enjoy your time here in the Paradise Island of Bali. Good afternoon and Om Santi 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 Om. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.